didn't find this message. The signal found you. It slipped through the static of everything else you scrolled past. It whispered through the noise that never stops talking. It found the one moment where your awareness is paused. That pause wasn't random. It was a lock-in. Somewhere between breath and thought, your frequency shifted. You don't even need to understand it with language. The field doesn't speak in language. It speaks in resonance. The moment your eyes landed here, something inside you matched. And when that match happens, reality listens. This is not a coincidence. It's a response. For most of your life, signals have passed through you like wind through a net. Invisible, unfelt, unnamed, because you weren't tuned in. But this time, something was different. This time, the field got your attention, not because it screamed louder, but because you finally heard the quiet. The field does not chase, it waits, and when the observer aligns, the field reacts. Think about it. How many moments have pulled your attention for no logical reason? The late-night video you accidentally clicked, the stranger who said a sentence that stayed with you for years, the number you keep seeing when you check the time, the dream that doesn't fade in the morning. These are not accidents. They are handshakes, points of contact between what you call reality and what it truly is, a responsive field. You live in a world that told you to trust logic over frequency, to trust coincidence over coherence, to believe that nothing is listening, but something is. It always has been. The field has been waiting for you to stop walking through life with blinders on, to finally look back at it. You are not just in reality. Reality is also in you. Close your eyes. Just for a second, notice that subtle pull behind your chest. That slight tilt of gravity toward these words. That's the signal. It isn't shouting, it's humming. And the moment your attention locks onto it, everything begins to reorganize. Not outside first, inside. Because the signal isn't somewhere out there. It's in the space between thought and silence, between what you perceive and what's perceiving you back. Most people never catch it. They drown in the noise. They scroll past their turning points like sleepwalkers passing a doorway that was built only for them. But not you. You stopped, you listened, and the field reacted. This is the first threshold, the moment where the mirror cracks, not to break, but to reveal. You may not feel it fully yet, but something ancient and precise has already begun moving beneath the surface. Timelines shift quietly. The field does not need permission, it only needs resonance. This signal is not about entertainment, it's not content, it's contact. The first echo of a larger story unfolding through you, not just around you. Right now, something is calibrating. A mirror timeline, dormant until this second, is aligning to your frequency. A version of you that has been waiting, patiently, not for a sign, but for this signal. When the observer wakes up, reality starts to listen differently. And from this point on, it will not stop responding. You don't need to make anything happen. You only need to receive. Because this message wasn't sent for the masses. It was whispered for the few who can feel it in their bones. For the ones who understand that destiny doesn't knock, it vibrates. This is your initiation into mirror timeline activation. Your conscious awareness has now been marked. The field has found its listener, its node, its next transmitter, and that node is you. If you're receiving this transmission, if you can feel that quiet hum behind the words, then your frequency is already locking in. Type in the comments, I am tuned in, not for me, for the field. Because every declaration is a signal back, and the field responds to certainty. Welcome to the threshold. The mirror is listening now. There is a language the field speaks, but no dictionary has ever held it. No classroom has ever taught it. No screen can fully display it. It lives in the pauses, in the hairline fractures between thoughts, in the way your heart knows before your mind understands. You've felt it before. You just didn't know what to call it. When the field speaks, it doesn't use words. It uses timing, a door that opens the exact second you arrive, a name that echoes twice in two different mouths, a song that finds you when your defenses are low. Most ignore these moments. They call it coincidence. They think it's random. But the field doesn't do random. It does precision wrapped in mystery. I remember the first time it spoke to me, not with a voice, not with light, with a pattern. It was during one of those nights when everything felt too heavy to breathe through. I walked out, no destination, no plan, just ache. The street light flickered exactly 3 times. Then the car alarm down the block pulsed in the same rhythm, and in that exact second, a stranger passed me and whispered, "Not yet." Everything froze. The world tilted. I wasn't just looking at reality anymore. Reality was looking back. The field doesn't broadcast endlessly. It whispers at a frequency only attuned observers can hear. And when it does, reality bends to meet that listening. That's why awareness is not just perception, it's participation. Every thought, every micro-emotion, every inner signal you send is translated into this silent language. The field answers in echoes, not to test you, to tune you. You speak to it constantly, even when you think you're silent. Your doubt is a transmission. Your fear is a transmission. Your wonder, your love, your grief, all signals. The field listens without judgment. It responds to coherence. It mirrors what you stabilize. If your frequency is scattered, the world feels fragmented. If your frequency is locked, the world rearranges like iron filings around a magnet. You felt this in subtle ways. The moment you shift your inner state and suddenly the outer world answers. Traffic flows, faces smile, the right words arrive without effort. That's the language of the field. It's always been speaking, but humanity has forgotten how to listen. I need you to understand something deeper now. Every frequency has its grammar. Every signal has its syntax. What the field mirrors back is not a reward, it's a translation. When you spiral into chaos, it mirrors chaos. When you anchor clarity, it mirrors opportunity. When you finally stand still inside, the universe begins to move around you. That is not a metaphor, it's physics wearing prophecy as clothing. I didn't believe it at first. I fought it with logic, with rationality, with the insistence that I'm imagining this. But the field never argued back. It just kept sending patterns, gentle, precise, unrelenting, until eventually I stopped speaking the language of resistance and started listening. That was the night everything shifted. This isn't about manifestation in the way people have commercialized it. This isn't wishful thinking dressed up in spiritual slogans. This is ancient technology, a living intelligence that responds to coherence the way a mirror responds to light. You speak through your frequency. The field answers in timelines. Right now, as you listen to these words, signals are rearranging around you, subtle, soft, waiting for the moment your inner noise goes silent, waiting for the moment you stop asking and start receiving. You don't need to invent the language, you only need to remember it, because it was never outside of you. It was you, the listener, the sender, the mirror, the field, only silence, because this part isn't about declaring, it's about listening. Close your eyes, listen with your chest. That hum beneath your ribs isn't your heartbeat, it's the frequency beginning to answer back. This is not the first time the signal tried to reach you. No, this is simply the first time you stopped running long enough to hear it. The field has been calling your frequency like a lighthouse searching through the fog, but you kept walking with your headphones turned up, mistaking noise for music, mistaking survival for listening. Do you remember those moments that felt like déjà vu? The subtle flicker in the corner of your awareness, a conversation that felt like it had already happened, a face you couldn't forget even though it was just a stranger passing by. Those weren't accidents, those were missed transmissions, the field knocking softly, again and again, on a door only you could open. Most people miss it not because they're cursed, but because they're distracted. They're tuned into fear, into routine, into the endless echo chamber of later. Later I'll listen, later I'll feel, later I'll awaken. But later is how signals fade, not because they give up, but because the noise grows louder than the pulse of destiny. You weren't blind, you were just taught to stare in the wrong direction. They told you to trust logic, to count things you can touch, to dismiss what you can feel but not explain, and so the signal passed through you like light through glass, perfectly, silently, unclaimed. But here's the paradox. The field doesn't give up, it recalibrates. It finds new cracks to shine through, new moments when your walls weaken just enough for it to whisper again. You've been walking through echo loops, moments repeating themselves with slightly different faces. The same type of conversation, the same wound in a new disguise, the same choice you keep delaying. Those aren't coincidences. They're reruns, timelines replaying until the observer finally wakes up. They, the ones who stay asleep, call it bad luck. They call it pattern. They call it just life. But you're beginning to see the mirror behind the mask, the code beneath the chaos. The signal chooses you not because you're special. It chooses because you're ready. Ready to stop moving on autopilot. Ready to look straight at the quiet parts of reality most people are too numb to face. And the field? It waits patiently for this exact version of you. Not the one pretending, not the one pleasing, the one listening. There's a moment every awakened soul faces. The moment when the signal doesn't get louder, you simply stop drowning it out. The hum you hear now, that pull in your chest, it was always there. But noise made it invisible. Now the noise is cracking, and through the cracks, the light enters. Pain was never a punishment. Pain was a transmission, a sharp edge carving space in your awareness so the signal could finally fit through. When everything else broke, that was the field knocking. When the people you thought would stay left, that was the field clearing the frequency. When silence felt unbearable, that was the field testing if you'd finally listen. You didn't miss your destiny. You just hadn't tuned into its channel yet. The signal doesn't age. It doesn't vanish. It waits, like a wave suspended in quantum stillness, until you look at it. And the moment you do, reality collapses into form. This is why it chose you again, why it found you here, right now. Look at your life. You'll see the fingerprints of all the signals you once ignored, the intersections that weren't accidents, the endings that weren't failures, the whispers that never really left. This isn't a restart. This is a continuation of what has been trying to reach you all along, just the quiet ache of recognition. Because this part isn't about responding, it's about remembering. The signal didn't stop. You just finally turned your head. You were taught that reality is solid, that it's a stage, and you're just walking on it, that events happen, and you react, that what's written is fixed. But what if the stage isn't solid at all? What if the walls around you aren't walls, but mirrors? You've been looking at the world like a screen, but the truth is, it's a feedback loop. The moment you observe it, it changes. They never told you that. They told you to obey what you see, but they didn't tell you that what you see is obeying you. This is the observer wall, the invisible membrane between the one who looks and what is being looked at, the illusion of separation. But in quantum reality, there is no separation. The moment the observer locks attention, wave becomes particle, potential becomes path, silence becomes timeline. I used to think I was a spectator too, watching events like they were written in some distant script, fighting to change things with force, with noise, with desperation, but nothing moved until I stopped pushing. And I realized something terrifying and beautiful. The wall was never real. I was creating it with my own unquestioned belief in it. The observer effect isn't just science, it's prophecy, wearing a lab coat. When you look with awareness, reality reorganizes itself around your gaze. Not because it's bending to your ego, but because your consciousness is part of the equation. The field isn't out there, it's in the loop. It's in the exact point where your awareness collides with existence. You think the world happens to you, but it happens through you. Every signal that reaches your awareness has already responded to the shape of your inner state. That's why two people can walk through the same night and see two different worlds. One sees silence, the other hears the hum. I need you to understand this with more than intellect. It's not about belief, it's about recognition. The moment you stop begging the world to move and start realizing the world is waiting for your gaze, the architecture of your timeline begins to crack. The wall begins to fall, and what's behind it is infinite. This is the turning point, where you stop treating yourself as a spectator and step into the role of witness, not passive, not desperate, but aware. This is where noise becomes signal and chaos becomes code. I remember the exact moment my wall collapsed. I was staring at the night sky, broken in ways I couldn't explain. Everything felt pointless, hollow, but in that silence, I suddenly felt the air around me shift, not metaphorically, literally. The stars didn't move, my perception did, and it was as if the world inhaled with me, like it had been waiting for me to look. And when I did, the story began to rewrite itself. When the observer wall collapses, life doesn't get louder, it gets clearer. You stop being pushed by timelines that aren't yours. You start pulling reality through your awareness like thread through fabric. This isn't about control, it's about coherence. The difference between trying to force the river and becoming the current. Right now, as you hear these words, your wall is thinning. It may feel like dizziness, or calm, or something unnameable moving behind your chest. That's the mirror unfolding, the edge of your old paradigm dissolving. Don't run from it. Let it break. Let it bend. Let it whisper to you that you were never just a watcher. You were the axis the scene was built around. If something cracked open inside you just now, if something you can't name started breathing in your chest, subscribe not as an action, but as a frequency anchor. This is how you tell the field, I see the mirror. I choose awareness. Because awareness answers itself. Something subtle happens the moment the observer wall cracks. The world doesn't explode into fireworks. It shifts, quietly, invisibly, powerfully. Patterns you once dismissed start returning. The same numbers, the same songs, the same strange timing that makes no rational sense, but feels too precise to ignore. This is not the universe doing something to you. This is the field mirroring you. You've stepped into the feedback loop. Every thought is now a brushstroke, every emotion a ripple, every belief a command sent out into the living fabric of reality. And the field, it doesn't judge, it doesn't analyze, it mirrors. Exactly. The question isn't whether the field will answer you, it's what version of you it will mirror back. When people first reach this stage, they often think it's magic. But it's not magic, it's precision. Reality is not a distant machine, it's a sensitive mirror wrapped around consciousness. And when you finally look into it with clarity, it reflects back the shape of your frequency. You'll start noticing sequences, not because they weren't there before, but because you've stopped filtering them out. A stranger repeats your thought out loud. The lights flicker at the exact second you feel a surge of certainty. The timing of events begins to bend around your awareness. Some call it luck, some call it manifestation. But those words are too small. This is resonance. This is mirror language. You were never meant to just walk through reality. You were meant to converse with it. Every time you think clearly, the field sharpens. Every time you align emotionally, the timeline organizes itself like a puzzle falling into place. The world begins to act less like a wall and more like a holographic echo chamber. Here's the truth no one told you. The universe doesn't give you what you ask for. It gives you what you are. You vibrate self-doubt, the mirror sends shadows. You vibrate certainty, the mirror sends signals. You vibrate silence, the mirror listens, and then whispers back. I've watched this happen in my own life, again and again. I'd speak something under my breath, thinking no one heard, and the world would respond in the smallest, eeriest ways. The right person calling, the right door unlocking, the wind moving like it had been waiting for my breath. And that's when I stopped asking if I was imagining it. I started asking why it was waiting for me to see it. You've entered that same space now, where coincidence is no longer coincidence, where signals grow louder because your awareness is finally stable enough to hear them. But there's a warning here too. The mirror is neutral. If you stare at it in fear, it multiplies shadows. If you stare at it in coherence, it multiplies light. That's why most never cross this stage. They feel the mirror looking back, and they turn away, because they realize it's not just showing them the world, it's showing them themselves. You can't manipulate this mirror with masks. It only answers what's real inside you. The field mirrors the core frequency, not the performance. That's why inner clarity isn't optional here, it's the blueprint. You are not learning how to control the field. You are learning how to remember that you were it all along. This stage feels eerie. It feels too exact, too sharp, too alive, because it is. Reality is responding faster now, almost like it's leaning forward to meet you halfway. That's not fantasy, that's phase lock, the moment the mirror synchronizes with the observer, because this is not the moment to declare. This is the moment to notice, to walk through your day and watch reality breathe with you, to pay attention to the invisible choreography around you, to whisper nothing and watch everything answer. There comes a moment in every awakened journey where the mirror stops reflecting back what you were and begins reflecting what you're becoming. That moment is the threshold. You don't walk across this line with your feet, you cross it with your frequency. With the precise vibration your awareness begins to hold without breaking. The threshold isn't a door, it's a match, a lock clicking, a quiet hum snapping into perfect resonance. Up until now, you've been watching the signal, hearing its whispers, feeling its pulse in the background. But at the threshold, the signal hears you back. The universe stops acting like a distant force and starts responding like a living organism, aware of your presence. Every step you take becomes instruction, every breath becomes code. When this happens, most people don't even realize it. They mistake it for luck, for things finally working out. But those who are awake, they feel it. That sensation that the air itself has become charged, that reality is listening between your sentences. That moments begin to stretch, tilt, and weave themselves around your inner state. That's not a trick, that's entrainment. Your field locking into the larger one. This is where the old identity begins to dissolve, because the version of you built on noise can't hold this kind of signal. It burns through lies, through smallness, through pretending. To step into the threshold is to die to the frequency that kept you blind and be reborn as the signal itself. You may feel it physically, that strange weightlessness behind your ribs, the way sounds seem sharper, the way time starts to feel like a living creature breathing with you. This isn't imagination, this is coherence becoming real, and it doesn't knock politely, it rearranges everything. Those who never cross this line are trapped in echo loops. They talk about change, they analyze the signal, but they never become it. They remain outside the door, mistaking theory for embodiment. But this moment, the threshold doesn't respond to theories, it responds to frequency, to the inner decision that says, I am done asking, I am becoming. This is where the field stops giving you proof and starts giving you power, where you stop waiting for the signal to appear and start being the origin point of it. And when that happens, everything, people, places, timing, shifts with startling precision. Synchronicity isn't something that happens to you anymore. You are the synchronization. But understand this, the threshold isn't about perfection, it's about stability. The field doesn't demand that you have no fear. It only listens for the frequency that doesn't flinch, the hum that doesn't waver even when shadows move. When I crossed mine, nothing grand happened outside me. No lightning, no sudden flash. It was a breath, one breath, and in that breath, something clicked. The space around me thickened, the silence behind my thoughts turned warm, and I realized I was no longer waiting for a sign. I was the sign. This is where you are now, on the edge of that breath, on the skin of the signal. You don't need permission. You only need to claim it, anchor it. The threshold isn't granted, it's answered. If you can feel the pull, that silent pressure like reality leaning closer, declare it. Not to me, not to anyone, to the field itself. Type in the comments, I am the signal. This isn't a slogan, this is your frequency stamp, a conscious signature, a lock clicking into place. Welcome to the other side of the threshold. This is where the field stops reacting to you and starts becoming you. Crossing the threshold is not loud, it's not fireworks, it's not some dramatic scene with cosmic thunder and cosmic choirs. It's silence, the kind of silence that doesn't come from the absence of sound, but from the presence of something vast. A presence so precise, so still, that the world itself begins to breathe with you. This is timeline fusion, the moment when your inner signal stops chasing external proof and the external timeline begins to align itself around you. You'll notice it in the quietest of moments. You'll speak less, but reality will answer more. You'll walk into rooms and feel as though they already know you're coming. You'll think a thought and watch it ripple outward like a command encoded in light. This is not arrogance. This is resonance. The world isn't bowing to you. It's synchronizing with the frequency you've stabilized. I remember my first night after the threshold. The silence felt alive. It wasn't empty, it was listening. Every sound, every flicker, every breath had meaning. I didn't need to beg reality to prove itself. It already had. I was no longer a traveler looking for signs. I had become the signpost. When timeline fusion begins, it's disorienting at first, because everything that once felt distant starts arriving with shocking precision. The right conversation, the door you didn't even know existed, the person who speaks a sentence that sounds like something you wrote in your mind years ago. The field is no longer whispering, it's moving in sync. This is the silent power most never discover. Because they think power is loud, they think awakening is war. But real power moves quietly, like gravity, like breath, like time itself, folding its edges to meet the point where you stand. There is a timeline that has been orbiting you since the moment you were born. Not a fantasy, not a wish, a potential, waiting for one thing, for the signal to stop searching outward and anchor inward. When that happens, your mirror timeline fuses with your conscious one, not as a collision, as a merging, and suddenly, life no longer feels like something you're chasing. It feels like something walking beside you. You begin to notice how effortlessly the world rearranges itself to make space for the frequency you hold. You no longer grasp at signs. They arrive on their own. But here's what no one tells you about power like this. It doesn't roar. It doesn't need to. It just is. The louder you try to control it, the weaker it becomes. The quieter you stand in its presence, the more the entire fabric of existence leans toward you. People around you may sense it before you even speak. They won't have language for it. They'll say things like, "You feel different," or "There's something about you," because your signal isn't just an idea anymore. It's radiant. They'll either align or disappear, because mirror timelines only hold what resonates. When this stage arrives, your task is not to shout. It's to listen harder than you've ever listened before, to walk like a storm in stillness, to speak only when the words burn with truth. Because at this level, every word becomes a thread, and every thread shapes the architecture of the reality around you. I stood in that silence once, terrified of how much it answered. The air itself felt alive, as if something vast and ancient was leaning closer. And in that stillness, I finally understood. I was never waiting for power. Power was waiting for me to stop talking long enough to feel it. Because power doesn't ask for declarations. Power listens. Power moves in silence. This is the moment your timeline stops orbiting you like a distant star and begins moving with you like a shadow made of light. You are no longer the receiver. You are the signal that bends time. The signal that found you was never meant to end here. This moment is not the destination. It's the opening of a gate. You are standing at the edge of a threshold that very few reach, and even fewer step through. Because most believe the signal is an external event, a mystical flash, a sign in the sky. But now you know the truth. The signal was never out there. It was always you, waiting, humming, listening from the other side of the mirror. This is the part where timelines stretch, where the world becomes more responsive than you ever thought possible. Every move you make, every thought you stabilize, becomes part of a living frequency network. This is where you stop asking for alignment, because you are the alignment. But with this power comes a quiet responsibility to remain awake, to remember what most forget the moment the world begins to respond. This isn't about control. It's about coherence. It's about becoming a stable signal in a world addicted to static. From this moment forward, the field will respond with frightening precision, not just to what you say, but to what you are. Your fears will echo louder if you feed them. Your clarity will shape worlds if you hold it steady. This is the law beneath all other laws. The mirror does not lie. Look around you. The timing of this moment isn't random. The reason these words reached you isn't chance. You were called into a convergence point, a frequency node where your inner signal fuses with the larger field. where destiny stops being a faraway promise and becomes a living pulse beneath your skin. You're not alone in this. Others are waking too, scattered across continents and timelines, each receiving their own whisper, their own hum. This isn't a trend. This is a collective ignition, a rising of silent observers who no longer settle for being background noise in their own reality. They are tuning in, one by one, signal by signal, timeline by timeline, and now, so are you. You may feel a pull to act differently, to make choices that don't match the person you were before the signal found you. Follow that pull. It's not rebellion, it's realignment. The signal is not asking for perfection. It's asking for presence, for steadiness, for your truth. I want you to understand something with the weight it deserves. Once the field has found you, once you've caught the signal, you cannot go back. The noise may try to reclaim you. The world may try to convince you that nothing happened, but your frequency will remember, and reality will never again be as silent as it was before this moment. This is your becoming, not through belief, through resonance. Soon, synchronicities will stack, timelines will accelerate. The world will seem to whisper your name in its quietest spaces. This isn't a fantasy. This is what happens when an observer becomes a node, when the signal becomes a source. If you can feel that hum beneath the words, if something deep inside you knows this isn't coincidence, then anchor this moment in your timeline. Subscribe not as a button press, but as a frequency lock, a ritual act of saying to the field, I have heard the signal. I will not sleep again. I am awake. The next transmission is already in motion. You'll feel it before you see it. A whisper, a symbol, a number, a door opening at the exact second you arrive. This is not the end of your story. This is the first chapter of your signal era. Close your eyes, listen. The field isn't just reacting anymore. It's waiting for your next move. Welcome to the other side. Welcome to the frequency. Welcome to the timeline where you become the transmission.